Hey guys, it's me, Rebecca. So this will be the start of another weekly vlog, and today's been a bit of a write-off for me. I've not been feeling well, and I did wake up from a nap a bit ago, and it was the kind of nap where you don't feel better afterwards, you feel a bit worse, so yeah, I think it's because yesterday I've mentioned I have some stomach issues in the previous video where I don't know what's going on with that, and it seems it's just a thing that happens once a month, so yeah, but I was productive last week, which I did not film. My previous vlog was from the week before this one, and it's currently August 3rd, and that one was the last full week of July. And typically with my wrap-ups, if I have to film it, I just take a week off, which I did last week, and I was kind of glad for it just because there was a couple of days where I just wasn't in the mood for it. Kind of wish I did, because I did go to the beach a couple more times, but that would end up being interesting, and I just want to enjoy summer, so yeah. And yeah, so I haven't done much today, which I don't know, we all need those days once in a while. And I did do some reading too. I did start Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. In my wrap-up, I did mention I wanted to read this, and I didn't really know what it was about. But now I kind of do. Well, not 100% confident, but with this one we follow Susan, and she grows up in Miss Suxby's baby farm, which I don't know. That sounds like a bit of an orphanage. And Miss Suxby treated her like she's her own daughter. She was brought up quite well and treated quite well, and despite her circumstances. Susan lives in a part of town where a lot of thieves live, and thieves go to their area to a man who lives with them, not Miss Exby's husband, and who takes what they stole and makes it so it can be resold, it seems like. And one day, a man named Richard Rivers, who Susan calls the gentleman, comes and tells the family of the scheme in which he wants Susan to be a part of. There is this man in the countryside who his entire life is of these books he has, and the gentleman, Richard Rivers, has been working for him as almost as a secretary to restore paintings he has. And this man, he is quite wealthy, he has a very nice house and whatnot, and he also has this niece who he guards extremely closely, I guess. And the plot is for Rivers to marry this woman, take her money, and ensure she never is able to be remarried, and by spoiling her, which in this time period you can probably know what this means. This takes place in, I don't like, the early 1900s, maybe the end of the 19th century, and leave this girl in a madhouse. And he wants Susan to play the role of this girl's maid, as her previous one fell to illness, and he cannot be left alone with her, as that would be very improper. And Susan, he teaches Susan the ways of being a maid and how to be proper, as this girl is much higher in society than Susan is, so there will be certain expectations on how she should behave, how she should address the girl, how she should address others, how she must, and what she must do in her role as a maid. And those lessons were just quite funny to me. And Susan is accepted as the maid, and we follow her disaster of her journey there, which was this really met by delays due to fog there. And Susan is only doing it because of money, but also we see on the night before her departure how she's almost afraid because she's never left the area and she doesn't want to leave the only home she's ever known. And yeah, and we see her being afraid, and she decides to be brave. Like, it'll be good for her family and herself to make some money in this way, even if it's not the best way, because yeah, there's quite a lot of money, especially in this time period that she's being promised. And when she gets to the house, she meets the servants and the housekeeper who are wary of her, and she tries to be nice to them, and they all seem to think like what she's doing is wrong, and they try to make her almost like an enemy or villainize her and her actions. Like, you're from London, you're not good enough for us, or we're not good enough for you. And I don't know this sort of behavior. And she also meets to charge Maud, who's quite innocent and childlike and almost naive, as she's been extremely guarded her entire life. It seems like, has never left the estate, and I don't want to put content here for a bit of a trigger warning. In a sense, it seems like Maud, she's expected to look a certain way, and she's like, but water might have fat in it. That was the line in it. I don't know, that's the way that sounded in my, I just don't know if it might be trigger for an eating disorder, or just because she doesn't really have eggs or any food. And Susan does mention she has an extremely small waist. So, and Maud, it seems her uncle doesn't really care about her. In her eyes, he sees her more of a resource to, like, to have someone read his books to him, or he's making notes. And we see how Maud and Susan, they grow extremely close, and how Maud grows to trust Susan, and Susan has mentioned that they were almost like sisters. And when a gentleman does come, there is some waiting until Maud agrees to run away with him and marry him. However, Susan learns that Maud isn't in love with him, but afraid of him. But with Maud, she sees this as the only opportunity she'll ever have of getting away from that house and estate and get some freedom. And how, like, so rarely gentlemen do come to the house that she doesn't think there'll be another chance. However, and we see how Susan, she starts to feel bad for going off the plan, as she starts to like Maud a lot, and she just tried to stop this plan, but she's decided she'll take the fate she's been given and make the fortune. And no matter what they do, Maud's fate is already dealt to her. She can either marry Rivers and end up in a madhouse, be locked away in a house, or she can continue being locked away in this house. But anyway, in Susan's eyes, Maud will be locked away no matter what they do. And that page I read previously, Susan realizes she loves Maud. So I'm curious on how that will go. So, yeah. And overall, I think it's fine. I do like seeing how Susan cares a lot about Maud, is like someone who has to take care of Maud, someone who needs to be near Maud at all times, because Maud, she has dreams and some sleeping problems when she takes sleeping drops for her, and she needs Susan nearby to calm her fears and be sure that there's someone near she can trust if one of her dreams gets out of hand, I guess, and she knows that Susan is real, so that is something I do like, and how reluctant Susan was at leaving the house of Miss Suxby and wanting to be there, and how this change for Susan, who is a quite young girl, is also quite big, so yeah, but writing wise, I'm not really loving the writing style. I just don't really, I don't know, there's something about it that's just not really working for me. I cannot put my finger on it, but yeah. And yeah, I think that's all for now, so I'll see you. So it's the next day, and I definitely feel a bit better than I did yesterday, Foo. Even if I do have a bit more energy, I do feel like I am getting sick with, as my nose, I feel congested, and so that's lovely. So I'm just hoping goes away quite quickly, as next week is my birthday, so yeah. And so far today I've not really done much besides some cleaning and whatnot, and I did do quite a bit of reading. I don't think I mentioned yesterday what page I was on of Fingersmith. I was on page 144, I'm now on page 236. And I'm definitely intrigued to see what will happen next. You see how the plan, goes through as planned, with Maud and Susan sneaking out at night to meet Rivers, so that Maud and Rivers can get married. And after the wedding I should say, Maud, she becomes more tempered in herself, more closed off, isn't eating. She's acting the exact way that Susan and Rivers need her to act when the doctors show up, which they do. Rivers invites two of his old friends to doctors who, they might be actual doctors, but they're questionable in their works. Like, they turn out the way, and they're the kind of doctors like Amanda's Pa's wives too, once they get them money. And they take a look at Maud, and yeah, they take a look at Maud and helps them to build their case against her, and they're off to the madhouse where, instead of Maud who gets off the carriage, it is Susan. Like, the whole thing, instead of Maud being set up, it was Susan being set up, because there's no Susan Smith of this area, that's not a real area, and as well with the fuck, Susan looks a lot like Maud and is wearing her dress. It doesn't help them. And the funny thing is, Susan's the one, Susan Sue is the one who's being played, not Maud, who was in on this all along. So that's where part 1 ends. In part 2, we learn of Maud's upbringing and how she was born in a madhouse, and her mother died in childbirth, and she, until she was 11, lived in the madhouse. Like, she was taken care of by the nurses there and whatnot, until her uncle comes to collect her. And I mean, I understand if he didn't want a Yao child, but leaving her in a place for 11 years, and then being surprised when she's not what you seem, like, her uncle doesn't like, she's loud and whatnot, and she tries to resist when she's gonna be brought to the house, and then when the uncle and the housekeeper, Mrs. Stiles, I think it was, tried to make her how they want her to be, she resists, and they punish her. And their methods are quite different. It might be something quite, I guess, subtle, like withholding coal from her when it's cold, or preventing her from having food, to hitting her knuckles, to hitting her, whipping her, that kind of punishment. And eventually she just becomes what they want her to be, this doll that they can dress up and show off, and they also teach her how to perform. Her uncle has gentlemen who are also in the book world. They're publishers, booksellers, come over, and he has her read to them, and because of the fact his eyesight is deteriorating, he has her read to him. And he wants her voice to sound pleasing and be a bit more quiet, and that's what she does. She makes her voice meeker and quieter so she doesn't get punished, and she'll be punished over the littlest of things. If she's in the study with her uncle and she yawns or makes some sort of noise, she's punished. So yeah, and her uncle is trying to make an index of books. I'm not sure if it's all books in the world or certain kinds of books. And he has the man over to discuss his works. And one day, when Maud is 17, the gentleman, Richard Rivers, comes, and she has a sense that his whole thing is a scheme, that he's fake because of his name, Richard Rivers. Like, that's a bit too nice, I guess. And her uncle wants to try and hire him to help him hang some pictures in the study and whatnot. And it seems like we might get the beginning of them plotting to ruin the uncle, to take his money, and for Maud to be free. But they will need a girl who's quite gullible. And I am wondering if Agnes really got sick and that's why she left, or if this fired her, because it seems like Maud doesn't treat Agnes well at all. It seems like Maud is treating Agnes the same way she was treated, by being punished severely, by being treated cruelly. We see the way she's treating Agnes is almost the opposite way she was treating Susan, where she was very nice to Susan. She wanted to be with Susan, be lying in the same bed, and with Agnes, it seemed like Agnes was afraid of her. And you also see how Maud, like, her actions with cutting the grass in front of her mother's grave, or kissing the picture she has of her mother. It might seem like she's a girl who loves her mother, who respects her, but it seems like she hates her mother, and she's only cutting the grass in front of her grave because she has to. It's her duty to do so. And she resents her mother for putting her in the position she's in with her uncle, who she doesn't like at all. So the whole thing is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm just curious, I guess, on where this book will go. So yeah, that's all for now. And so it's the next day, and so far I've done some cleaning and whatnot. I also had to cut the grass, and yeah, and I did do some reading of Fingersmith. Put me on page 404, and I do have to say, this is starting to feel a bit long to me, a bit tedious, and I just got to a part where I just didn't really care for it, just because it was a sequence of events that just felt a bit repetitive, which I think is the point, because Maud's life is at this point is repetitive. She thought she was getting out of one prison only to end up in another prison. And I should just talk about the plot. But we see Maud, her conversation with the doctors, of her acting the part of the maid, Maud acting the part of Susan, pretending that Maud has dressed up as a servant and is acting like she's the servant to Susan, and if that makes sense. And the doctors, they ask her and Rivers if she's read books. Oh god. So this is during a time where people believe women to be the feeble sex, how they're fragile, how they can't consume books, otherwise they'll have ridiculous ideas and behave ridiculously. Which is exactly what happens because of the fact Maud grew up with her uncle who made her read books. They used that to their advantage. So yeah, they blame what's happening on her state of mind, on the not what's happening, but the fact she read books on her state of mind. And after they leave Susan at the madhouse, Rivers and Maud, they go to London, and he takes her to Miss Suxby, who was in on this plan the entire time. In fact, it was her idea. She tells the story of Maud's mother, who went away from her brother and father after falling pregnant by a gentleman who had a family of his own, and the father and brother, they track her down after she gave birth, and her not wanting that life for her daughter gives her, I think it's like the simple name of Susan, and leaves her Miss Saxby's care, while Miss Saxby gives her an orphan named Maud to take with her and claim as her daughter. And and she signed this will of sorts saying all her money would go to the girl when she turned 18, and they are planning to go to lawyers and see if it's feasible, see if they're able to get this money. And we learn Miss Saxby only ways Susan the way she did with the love she did to prepare her for the plot, but really Susan was a pawn in all of this. And when that plan goes through, she moves her heart towards Maud. She tells everyone to forget about Susan. They tell the story of how Susan was wicked actually, and that she went away. And if people come to question, Miss Suxby doesn't allow anyone to question where Susan is, and she forbids anyone from talk about Susan. However, with Maud, because Miss Suxby sees dollars, or not dollars, pound signs, I think it is. And with Maud, she treats Maud extremely well, dots on her, dresses her up lovely, beautifully, like a lady, in order to prepare her for her debut into society. And Miss Suxby talks about this fancy house they'll have once they get the money, and it's all very fancy. However, in order to prevent Maud from running away, they lock her up. They lock her in her rooms, they make sure the doors are always locked when they're out. They've locked away her belongings to prevent her from taking anything to allow her to escape. They give her slippers that she can only wear inside the house. They're not outdoor shoes, so anyway, she is a prisoner, and eventually Maud is able to get past, what is her name? One of the other orphans there, who was there to watch her, and she's able to get away, and she is greeted. She meets London properly for the first time. Oh my word, her adventures in London. This is a girl who's never been to London, never been in London. She's never left the estate her uncles lived in since she was brother, so she's clueless about London and the streets well and all. And we see how she's accosted by this man who tries, who thinks she's a woman of a certain kind, let's say. And she gets away, and she goes to Mr. Hartray, who was one of the gentlemen who her uncle entertained, and news has gone out about Maud, and as well, Maud's uncle, who has fallen extremely sick, has contacted Rivers, and Mr. Hawtrey doesn't want to help her exactly, or he can't, because of the fact she arrived at the store in a way she's in her state of dress, with the fact she's wearing slippers and, well, essentially no shoes at this point because they've been destroyed, and she doesn't have a hat. She looks like a certain woman, and he is worried about his reputation, about especially of the police coming, and what that means for the store, because the store is down a dodgy alley, it seems like, where there's only gentlemen who are buying books, and they're all looking at her. So yeah, that last bit of her being in London, I don't know, I just didn't really care for it. Not with the fact she was a prisoner, but it's just, I just found those pages to be quite boring, honestly. I don't know. The story is losing me a bit, but I don't want DNF just because typically I do DNF when I'm no longer interested in the story, and there's something about me that's like, I'm still intrigued. Something in me, I should say. Typically there will be a fault, my brain telling me I don't want to read this down here, so yeah. But so far, yeah, I just don't have many thoughts. I think it's fine, but I am intrigued to see what will happen next. If Maud will get help, or if she will be used as a pawn for this poor family to get money. So yeah, we will see. But yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'll see. So it's the next day, and so far I've done some cleaning and whatnot. I did some laundry, and yeah, and I did do quite a bit of reading, quite a lot of reading actually, of Fingersmith, and I'm starting to lose interest in how this ends. And I don't want DNF just because there is what I have about 50 pages left, about 54. So yeah, it's only one DNF, and I have so little, but reading about Susan in the madhouse, I don't know. Again, it felt wrong now, which I guess is the point of both of them waiting for their fates to be what they are. I mean, they did switch places, and they're in their proper place, I guess, with what was destined for them and with their birthrights and whatnot, but still. And I do like the theme, I guess, of with this being around the Victorian age, and because they're both women and because of certain standards, and they just don't get a lot of help from the men in their lives. Like, we see Mom, she thinks Mr. Hawtrey will help her, and he tells her he cannot allow her to stay with him due to his wife and daughters, and he stops trying to persuade her to go back to Rivers, who is her husband, and he calls a taxi and hires a woman to take her to a hotel. However, it isn't a hotel. The woman shows the note he wrote, which is the address to a home for dissolute gentlewomen, and Maud is able to persuade her to take her back to Miss Saxby, who continues to treat her kindly and is reminded of Maud of her own child, a child she lost, and that's where part 2 ends. Part 3 is we go to Susan when she's being forced into the madhouse, how the nurses and doctors won't listen to her claims of her not being Maud and think she is mad, how the nurses treat her poorly by hitting her, punishing her because it's fun for them, how they're not very good nurses. decides they will harm her and then say, oh, she was mad, she had a fit, she deserved it. Like, try to claim it, like, she tried to write it off to the doctors, really. And how the doctor is trying to heal her by having her write her name or story, or really Maud's name in the story. He thinks her illness is related to the fact she read a lot, so her mind is full of ideas. And Susan, cannot read or write, so that is the issue. And not an inmate, but a woman writes Maud's name thinking she is helping Susan, but it's actually making the situation worse. And we see how she tries to find ways to escape, but all routes have been locked. And the nurses keep their keys close to them at all times and keep their eyes on them at all times. They wear their keys on their necks while they're sleeping, so it's extremely difficult and impossible to get the keys from them. And we see how she claims to hate Maud, but she dreams about her, and subconsciously she still loves Maud. And we see how Susan, she does lose herself in this place. She does not become mad, but she loses track of days and weeks that she's been there, and she has started to believe that she is Maud after everyone addresses her as Maud, and how the doctor has stopped treating her because her leaving meaning less money for the madhouse. So it's just take a look at her and then move on. They're not actually there to help these women, but to take money from their husbands, fathers, brothers who are paying them to keep them locked up. And she continues until Charles, who was a servant in the house, comes to her. He's trying to find Rivers. He's left the house and was living with his aunt, who was the woman who owned the house that they were at after the wedding. And Charles got the address to the madhouse after learning Rivers was there, thinking, it's a fancy hotel, when yeah, it's not. Susan tells him that Rivers is in London and he must help her to escape, and if he wants to go there. And he does, and by bringing her this blankie, and she follows it so it fits the lock, or all the locks, it seems like, in the madhouse. And she escapes. They went to London, and Charles sees the things people do to survive, the ugly things, the bad things, like steal and lie, and he refuses to see Rivers as this villain for who he actually is, and instead he wants to continue seeing Rivers as this good guy who he portrayed himself as. And it's people in the countryside are much different people to those who live in the city. For Charles, it's almost like a wake-up call that not all people are good, and I hesitate saying good, because the staff in the house, they treated him badly. Like Mr. Way, who was in one of the other servants higher up, he did whip Charles, so it's Charles realizing people aren't always who they say they are, really. And Susan, she's trying to find a way into Miss Suxby's house without anyone seeing her, as she believes Rivers probably told her lies, and she is able to. And she is also able to find a place across the street to stay to watch Maud in Mrs. Suxby's house, and she sees how she thinks Maud has tricked Mrs. Suxby into loving her the way Mrs. Suxby loved Susan, and it breaks my heart really because Susan just cannot imagine Mrs. Exby is also a villain in this plot, and because she has seen and has been tricked by Maud, invisibly so, it's that Maud is the villain in all of this, when anyway she's also a victim. So yeah, where I got to is then in the book is Maud and Susan kind of confronting one another in the house, and Mrs. Exby, Mr. E, all of the others living in the house are there, and Mrs. Exby is like, Susan, why don't you just lie down, just rest, dear, and whatnot. And I'm just like, no, don't. Because Maud has a knife, and this is a perfect opportunity for Mrs. Exby to just kill her somewhere. But that and word for Susan, who trusts Mrs. Exby and doesn't trust Maud. And what will happen to her if she listens to Mrs. Exby and not Maud. So, yeah, that's word for Susan. But otherwise, I'm just like, I don't know, the middle bit is, again, it probably was on purpose for it to be a bit funny, but it's just lost. It does cause me to lose interest. I don't know, we will see what the last 50 so pages will end or will do. But yeah, that's all for now. So I'll see you when I see you. Why was my camera so close? I mean, it always is, but. So it's the next day, and I didn't really film much today. I did go out. This town on the shoreline was doing some sort of white elephant sale, which is a bit odd, is because it's Tuesday and it was free to enter. Like, I don't know, I just want to hear this because typically big tag sales like that, they do occur on Fridays and on Saturdays, like on a weekend, so on the middle of the week. I don't know. But I did buy some stuff. I bought this watch. I think it was like $6, and it does work. I did make sure it did work because I don't want to wear a watch that doesn't. And I don't know. I have some plans for later this month, and I don't really want to be wearing a watch. I don't want to be looking at my phone to know the time I want to wear a watch. So I also got this glass for $1 because it was buy 4 glasses for $1, and I just wanted this one just because I don't know, I just found it very beautiful, and I want to drink my Coca-Cola like a fancy witch. I don't know this. And I also got this beautiful bag for, initially I wanted 20 and I was gonna leave it, and some bargaining did occur and I got it for 15, so not a bad one, and it is in pretty good shape. So yeah, and I did also go to the beach, and when I didn't swim this because it was quite cloudy and quite windy, and this wasn't really meant for. Very beautiful with the clouds. So yeah, on my way home I had to do some shopping, pick up some bits and pieces, and pick up a prescription. So yeah, and I also did quite a bit of reading. Fingersmith put me on page 310, and I do say I am liking the characters. They feel flash out, like I understand their motivations, why they're doing it, and seeing how they're hesitating in going through the plots they think are gonna be carried out through Rivers. I'm waiting for Rivers to double cross Maud and trick her like they've tricked Sue. And we see what Rivers does to Agnes to make her leave in order to put Sue in her place as Maud's maid. How he sleeps with her and wounds her, and I'm hesitating to use that because I don't know if it was fully consensual, highly likely not. Just because even if Agnes had feelings for Rivers. She was a good Christian. She always prayed before bed, and this hurts. So it does not hurt. I mean, it does hurt her, but in her eyes, she feels like she's committed a sin. But Maud, who knows what Rivers is doing, doesn't say anything about her knowing it, and Agnes just tells Maud that she has scarlet fever. And we see how Maud, she delays the plan from going through Rivers. He grows impatient and threatens to break off the deal and leave her in that house for the rest of her life. He keeps reminding her that he does have this power, and he reminds her that he is her only chance of being freed from this imprisonment and to be able to get away from her uncle and those books. So she, in a way, is afraid of him because of his boldness and of the fact he keeps reminding her that of the fact she is half the villain in the plot and ruining Sue's life and for wanting to go forward and kind of making her go on in this plan, even if she is definitely developing feelings for Sue. So yeah, and in those scenes, and in certain scenes, sorry, I got distracted. We see Maud's perspective of the same scene, but from her perspective. What was that? I have no idea, but yeah, so I find that interesting. And we see what Maud does when they leave. She told Sue she wanted to see the library one last time, make Sue think, oh, she was this meek, innocent child who liked being in the library, but she actually went to her uncle's room, took a razor, and tore up his book. So yeah, that's a bit of you to the uncle, but yeah, I just liked seeing the same scene from different perspectives and how gradually both Maud and Sue, they both feel guilty for tricking the other person into these plots, and they want back out, but they've already signed their fate, or in Maud's case, it's her only way of changing her fate of being free, and as well as the fact she is definitely afraid of Rivers and in some regards. So there is that not wanting to go forward, but something compels them to go forward. So yeah, again, I am curious because there's over about 580 pages in this book. I'm on page 310, meaning I have 270 pages, so I'm definitely curious in what's gonna happen after they drop Sue off at the madhouse. But yeah, I think that's all for now. So it's the next day, and as you saw, I did go out today. This town by the shoreline was having some sort of fair thing, and part of it was a tag sale, which I did go, and there was just nothing I really wanted. And afterwards, I did walk a bit and did a bit of grocery shopping and whatnot. And I also finished Fingersmith by Sarah Watterson. While initially I did care and I was intrigued, I think with me feeling it drawn out, it does have to me feeling meh about it. Like I just didn't really care about the characters or what would happen to them in the aftermath after everything. So I think overall I'm just gonna give this 3 stars. Like I don't think it was a bad book, but this wasn't for me. And we do see the confrontation now. How no one is speaking clearly. Everyone's talking around each other, Mrs. Uxby's trying to act like it's normal, everything's normal, and that's until Withers comes in and yeah, there's a confrontation. Maud does have a knife on her, and she did put it down, and she was gonna use that knife to kill him. Did I say Maud? Susan had a knife on her, my apologies. And she was gonna kill Maud. She put a knife down, and something happened where someone picked up the knife, and someone was stabbed. And with how sharp it is, well, it killed him. And Charles, who was with them, yelled, "Murdered on the street," and the police showed up. And Mr. Ebe, who I guess, pawn store, and Mrs. Uxby, who took blame for the murder, they went to prison, and the other children, John and Daisy, they went away. And Susan is just left alone in the house. John wants nothing to do with her. Daisy does come over to keep her company, which I do like that friendship. And we see the fates of Mr. Abe and Mrs. Uxby, how Mr. Abe served time in prison and how it affected him severely, and how Mrs. Uxby, she did go down for this murder. Her lawyer was hoping with her age the jury might be nice to her, but the prosecutor, they made Mr. Rivers seem like this nice, down-to-earth guy. Like, yeah, he might have been a fraud, but he was a good guy. Even they did have his parents on his stand, and it was revealed that he didn't come from money, that he came from a simple background. He wasn't really part of society, I guess. His family was reformers, I believe it was. So the prosecutor basically painted Mrs. Uxby to be this villain. She did have this orphan farm, and they even had mothers who gave their children to her to understand and whatnot. And yeah, Mrs. Uxby's hanged. And with all of this, Maud is not around. She left London, and Susan, who has nowhere else to go, because Wendell soon is overdue, and the banks will come for the shop and the house, so soon she'll be on the streets. She goes to Bar, which was the house, and it's learned that the uncle died and all of the servants left. The only one who stayed is William Inker, who was the one who collected Susan from the train, and his wife, and this Maud in the house is depicted. It's almost like an old Gothic house you would see in the Victorian period, abandoned, and Maud is just there, and she finally tells Susan the truth about those books, and that in order to support herself, she is fighting similar, and it's about what she would like to do to Susan. So yeah, overall I did give it 3 stars, and I'm up here because I wanted to grab the next book I'm gonna start, which is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I believe this is about these 2 brothers who have quite an age gap, and their father dies, and it's about them dealing with that grief. So pretty much intrigued about that. Earlier this year I did read Normal People by this author, and I really much enjoyed it, so I'm curious about this one. But yeah, I think that's all for now. I am feeling quite tired today, so I'm just gonna lay down probably, which I probably shouldn't, because that will mess with my sleep considering it is 2 o'clock, and yeah. But yeah, I think that's all for now. So it's the next day, and I did go out today. I had to run a few more errands, do some more grocery shopping and whatnot. And I did go to a tag sale where I did buy something, and that is really the reason I'm in my bedroom, because I bought a mirror. But yeah, it's this one. It's just this dark brown mirror that I have up, and yeah, ignore my walls. they've been painted like this, and I was very little, and I don't know, I've never been able to decide like what color to change the paint color to, so yeah, that's why I don't really film in my room, because, well, just don't really like the pink color. Just, I don't know, I just never really knew what to paint to do, so it is what it is. But yeah, and that mirror does cost me $10, so not a bad one, especially with how beautiful it is. So yeah, and I did do some reading today of Enderman, so put me on page 52, and so far I'm just getting into the novel, and so far I'm just feeling mad about it. It's because I do read in the mornings when I wake up for about half an hour before I make breakfast, and this isn't the kind of book you can start your morning with, really. But considering already we have a lot of philosophical talk, I guess, and he started a novel with one of the brothers, the older one, Peter. He's going to this woman he's in who she's kind of down on her luck, has to like be like a sugar baby, I guess, to the men to help pay off her rent and whatnot, and she is, I think, living in a place she technically shouldn't because of some rules that were made during the pandemic that some landlords are still abiding by, but yeah, it's a whole mess, you can assume. And his father had already died, their father had already died, and the funeral had already occurred. And when he leaves Naomi's to go to dinner with his friend, he can't help but think of how things have changed in the world and what is more acceptable behavior and how people behave and treat each other is very much different to what it was previously to when he was growing up. And we meet Ivan, the younger brother, and Ivan, he was born the same year I was, though, which is a fact I learned reading this. So this takes place in 2021 of his age, and he is watching the preparation of a chess tournament he's playing in. He was apparently once one of the best players in the world and seems to have lost the title. He isn't the best when it comes to people, as he overthinks communication he is seeing, and he's not sure how to communicate well. We learn later that he spent most of his teenage years studying how to play chess properly, learning both the rules and the techniques, and just to become as good as he could be, and that affected him socializing with his peers, as he's not very much good with people. He's quite, at times, awkward, I would say. And where is my train of thought? And he seems to also have some regrets regarding his father's death and their funeral, how his older brother had to prepare and organize things and was in charge of giving the eulogy, something he regrets, as he does wish he did have a part, but he does accept it is what it is. And he is thinking about the separation of the body and mind in this one, and how fear is that the body dies, then the mind must also die, have been infused, and how he knows this stuff because his brother graduated from the school of philosophy, which makes sense with all the philosophical stuff. Which I swear sometimes it's this going over my head. If you heard that, I hit my camera, the cover for my camera, so. And we also get this perspective from a member of staff at this chess club place named Margaret, who is definitely interested in Avon and goes to see him play and is amazed with the fact he's playing multiple games at once. And we see how he gives advice to this younger girl and who help her improve her skills, and this seems very nice about it, and so far I'm liking him. And after the game, they and a few others, they go for a drink, and while the two of them are alone, she asks him what is he passionate about before going awkward, and it's her over analyzing her word choice. If it was a bit passionate, like, oh, what are you passionate about? Like, I'm passionate about writing, I love writing. Or is it like something more sexual, like something not infant, no, what is the word? My word. But she's regretting her word choice. If she should have used a safer word when it's less overpowering. She views words like in color, and she views passionate as a wet word, something that's very bright and loud, and she's saying I should have used a gray word, something not so loud, something more neutral. And she is the one driving him to his accommodation, and he invites her, and then she accepts, knowing damn well he is gonna try to seduce her, and they both have insecurities about this encounter, which I do like, because she is 14 years older than him, and it's stated she's 36, he's 22, so that is a bit of an age gap, and that's where we see him, the one over analyzing the situation, or really thinking he is, and she is attractive and doesn't know if she's attracted to him after watching him beat people at chess. So it's just him being a nervous wreck, which is just entertaining to watch. And yeah, he does open about the fact he hit his peak 4 years prior, and he thinks he has gotten worse since then. That thinks that maybe the people in his life were white, and he was spending too much time on chess. And there is talk on maybe you don't have control over how your life goes out. You don't know how the decisions you make now will impact you in the future, or if you'll regret them in the future. Because Margaret, she married when she was in her 20s, and she and her husband, they've not gone through the legal process because it's too much of a hassle, but they're no longer living together, and she does regret marrying him, and the fact she wasn't so, I guess, bright when she was younger, and she thinks he's much more smarter than she was in making the decisions she did. In this world, we don't know what decisions we're making now, I guess, affect our future, or what we will think of those decisions in the future, if we will regret making them. And the only thing when that future comes is regret those decisions. When, if that's what happens, it's not like we're able to turn back time and speak to our younger self and be like, you needed to socialize more. You shouldn't have spent all your time in your room reading about the opening moves of chess. You should have gone to make friends. But things just played out how it is, and that's something I did like a lot. And yeah, and where I got to is them sleeping together, and I don't know, it's just that scene I fears, and I might have to skim over it. It's because typically with sex scenes I kind of cringe, honestly. Most of the time I don't think them necessary. That's my opinion. I just don't really care for them, honestly, so I skim read them. But considering they're actually communicated well, there's lines of dialogue during this, I might have to, so yeah. But that will all be in my next vlog, my thoughts on this book, as it is Saturday, and I do end my vlogs on Saturday, so unless you want this vlog to be 2 hours long, I'm just gonna end it now because I don't want to edit it. So yeah, that's all for now, and I'm about to finish one. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below, tell me what you've been up to recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post.